Do you want your drops sounding loud? This loud? I'm only joking about that, but in this video we're going to look at how loud you can realistically push your drop to compete in this crazy loudness war we have in drum and bass and other hard-hitting electronic music genres. So let's do this. So here's my drop. What we're going to focus on is the drums and the basses. We need to get the drums sounding as loud as possible first, and then the basses sounding as loud as possible whilst complementing the drums. And we've got to do all this whilst not distorting anything, including the rest of your track, like the build-up and the intro. And once that's done, I'll show you 3 different ways you can push it on the master: a free version, a clean version, and an absolute destruction version. I'll show you what each one is good for as well. So part 1 is all about volume control. Now before we get started, if you want to follow along more easily in the future and you haven't yet got this free project template, there's one for Ableton as well, and it just means you can follow along mixing down exactly how I do. Just makes it a bit more simple for you. So there's a free download to the project template below. So now let's mix the drums. So everything is currently muted, and I'm going to introduce things one at a time just so you can see what I'm doing. So let's do the kick drum first. So we can see the kick drums going into the kick group, and I did do some EQing to this kick drum to make it fit the mix more. So let's look at it from the kick group side. We're going to go until we see 0 dB on here, just to get it as loud as possible. There we go, so it's hitting 0 dB. You can see it's redlining on the master, but we'll come to that later on. As long as it's 0 on here, then it's fine. We just bumped the kick drum up to 0 dB, but if you want to push it even more and feel like it won't clip, then you can obviously add a limiter on here. You can add a KHS limiter and push the kick into this as well. It depends on the style of track you're going for. Just be careful, because when it clips, it can sound horrendous. Now let's add the clap. So there's 2 claps for this, so I'm just going to do it by ear. Whilst also looking at this. So we have got a camera crush on here, which is squishing it to the max, so it doesn't need to be as loud. Something like that sounds good. Now let's add in the hi-hats. So these are going to be a little bit quieter than everything else. And we've got another hi-hat here. And then some little effects down here as well, some other bits. So we'll just reset all these and you can hear them. Maybe turn this one down a little bit. There we go, that sounds good. So now let's add in the basses. So you'll see on here, the basses are going to be pretty loud, and we're going to leave the post-processing on these because I just want to show you exactly how I do them. So the free limiter you can use is called KHS limiter. And this is basically just going to stop it going above 0 dB. So stop it clipping. So without it, you can see it's going in the red line a little bit. With the limiter on, we're stopping that. And we can add this on every single bass. I recommend using this one if you have CPU issues, because Pro L can absolutely destroy your CPU, and then use Pro L or the one we'll go on to later, or like the buses and the master channel. Save your computer a little bit. So we'll turn all these back on, all the basses, and you'll see just how loud they're coming in. So we're really pushing these against the limiter. You want every single one to be pushing above that 0 dB, and then this limiter will stop it going over 0 dB, just to get maximum loudness. So you see this one as well, very loud. And then the sub bass I'll show you on a Pro so you can see. Somewhere between -3 and 0 dB should be good. So we could reduce it a little bit to -3 dB. But it's really up to you. I quite like it a little bit louder there. And again, we can use that KHS limiter here. And it shouldn't affect the sound quality too much. Depends how much you're pushing it. So if you're really pushing it, then a Pro L might be better there, because the sound quality of Pro L is slightly better. So we've got our drums coming in really loud, the kick drum loud, and then everything else a bit quieter below. We've got the basses being pushed against each limiter. And you can see all these groups here and all the basses are getting sent to the drum bus and the bass bus. And this is where we can control the levels even more. So let's look at the drum bus first. So you can see that at the moment it's redlining a little bit. So everything is getting sent into here, but because it's a cluster of sounds, it's going above 0 dB. So we can put our limiter on here. So again, you can put the free one on, or if you want a little bit better sound quality, you can use the Pro L, which is what I use here, a Pro L. It just sounds a bit better in my opinion. We're doing this at +1. And of course you can push this as much as you feel comfortable. But you can hear there, the kick drum is starting to distort. So we'll just keep it low like this. Sounds good there. And then we've also got two more things. So we've got parallel compression and parallel distortion. And if we add these, so let's turn these on, you can see we can change the amount we're doing on here. And then the parallel compression, we've just got a fruity compressor on it, and feel free to just look through these presets and then go through these presets and play it and see which one you think sounds better. That's just an easy way to do things. And then distortion, we've literally just got a fruity fast distortion on it. You can just change the mix to how aggressive you want it to be. And what this does is this then sends 3 signals all to the master channel. So your drums are going to sound louder. So listen to this. And then with the parallel compression and parallel distortion, so you've got 3 signals now combining all together on the master to give you louder drums. And what this means is you can push the basses more without the drums being destroyed, which means overall by pushing the basses more against the drums and the drums still sounding loud, you can get a louder mix. And you can also do this with KHS as well. If you just want to set it to the same, it doesn't sound too much different. Listen. I can just tell there's a slight quality difference there for me. But KHS is good for beginners. So then we come to our bass channel, and currently if we play it, you can see it's absolutely redlining and it sounds a bit dodgy. So let's turn on the plugins, and we just got a post-processing plugin here. I think I just was adjusting some of the basses slightly to fit the mix better. And then we've got our sidechain here. So this is just sidechaining all the basses. And then finally, we've got our KHS limiter, which is going to stop that redlining madness. You can see there, sounds pretty good. And again, better sound quality would be the Pro L. You can see it's stopping anything going above 0. And then I'll just reset that, but at the moment we're at 0 dB. So because we've done quite a lot of parallel compression and distortion, you don't need to reduce the bass bus as much. You could try leaving it at 0. But to me, that still sounds like the bass bus is coming through a little bit too much compared to the drums. So what I normally do is tail it off about -1 dB. And then depending on how your ears are picking up the sounds, you might want to go a little bit lower to -2. But for this track, it works really well at -1. And remember, the more you bring it down, the less loud the overall sound's going to be. So to me, that sounded perfect. So now you may have other elements like vocals, instruments, and effects buses on here. You just got to mix them in a similar formula. If you've got vocals over the drop, then you'll have to mix them in as well. But we won't go over that in this video. I'm sure you can figure that out pretty easy enough. Just make sure you keep your effects quiet and in the background, and any one-shot effects fit in nicely with like the drum percussions. Instruments, just make sure it's like as loud as the basses are here. And it competes with it, so it doesn't suddenly go quiet. So now let's look at the final stage, which is the drum bus and the bass bus and everything else is being sent to the master channel. And then we can put our final limiter on the master channel, and then we can boost this to get the maximum loudness possible. So you can see currently we've got this free tool, which is Uline Loudness Meter, and we can see the integrated LUFS level here. Now, whatever level you want to go for is up to you, but with the KHS limiter, from what I've tested, you can get it to sound good with this method, and you can get to like -6 to -8 LUFS. So this is perfect for beginners, I'd say. If you don't want to invest in a plugin yet like Pro L, then just get the KHS one. It will do the trick for a long time. Don't use the Ableton or Fruity limiter ones. They're just not as good, unfortunately. And then with the Pro L tool, I've found that you can typically boost it to -5 to -7 LUFS with this method, and it sounds super clean. That's what I currently master all my tracks with when I send them to like Spotify. So if you go on Spotify now and listen to any of my tracks, they are all mastered with Pro L on the master channel because it just sounds the cleanest in my opinion. But the only issue is Pro L is not free. And then we've got the crazy plugin option, which is Ozone Maximizer. And with this tool, I've been able to get -3 to -5 LUFS. So this is just getting like insanely loud now. And this will be able to compete with any other tune that you play in like a club setting. So when you push Ozone 10, which we'll go through later, what basically happens is you introduce like subtle harmonic distortion, and it also does some like peak rounding. So rather than acting like a limiter when you push it, it kind of acts like a clipper, which is like a bit confusing and hard to explain. But in simple words, it basically makes your track sound louder and more energetic, but then it makes it sound less clean as a result. So before I show you, what I also recommend you do is whatever style of mastering you want to go for, I recommend just putting the limiter on the master channel before you even start the tune. Just have it there ready, because if you mix into the limiter, it's going to make your track just sound better. Because if you add the limiter later on and then want to push it and then you get distortion, then you have to go back and mix things again just to get it to fit in. But if it's already there ready and you're already mixing into it, then your track's going to be mixed down by the time you finish the track. It just speeds up the process and makes it a lot easier. So let's first hear what we do by just mixing with the KHS limiter. So let's turn off the Pro L on the bass bus and the drum bus, and let's add in the KHS limiter. And then we'll put the Uline here, the KHS here, turn it on, and now let's listen. So play the drop. So we're currently getting -7 LUFS, and then we can just introduce this gain until we get it sounding loud. So that's sounding pretty good, and we're getting -6.6 LUFS. So between that range I mentioned, any more and it'd probably start distorting and sounding horrible. Now let's look at the Pro L version. So we'll turn Pro L on the drum bus, we'll turn it on the bass bus, and then let's turn it on the master as well. And let's see what we get for this. Both Pro L and Uline are massive, so I'm going to have to do a bit of overlap here. Now let's listen and increase the sound. So what I'm aiming for here is around -6 on average for the gain reduction. Don't want to go too high because then it gets diminishing returns. But you can see on the left there, we're getting -5.6 LUFS. And that is about what I said, -5 to -7, you get the most clarity. And one great thing about Pro L as well is that you can like really push it and it still sounds good. So if you like accidentally push it too much without like realizing one day, it will probably still sound good and you won't have to worry too much. But one thing again you can do is if you feel like you're pushing it too much, then just bring it back like 2 dB or whatever and it will still sound good as well, and you've got a like little safety barrier. And finally, let's look at Ozone. So of course you can put the maximizers on the drum bus and the bass bus if you want to go extreme. But I just prefer to use Pro L on the drum bus and bass bus because I feel like we need some control in the mix, and then we can just whack the maximizer on the master. So you can see we're already getting -5.3 LUFS before we've even done anything. So let's turn this character down around about here. Then that's already making it louder. And then we can just basically increase this threshold until you've got it as loud as you want. And then you can see we're getting like -3.5 LUFS. So that hits the target, -3 to -5 for Ozone 10. But then this is where it can start to get crazy. So you start to lose control of the mix down quite a lot, and you're basically just blasting the sound. So you might not get as good sound quality. I've noticed that it's quite hard to get it to sound like really good whilst the mix down also sounds clean, which is why putting this on the master before you even start making the tune and leaving it here throughout, because then you can mix with this in mind the whole time, is probably the best way to do it. So you might have to go back on your current mix now and go through the intro and be like, why is it blasting my riser to this volume? I need to turn this down. I need to turn the kick drum down. I need to turn the snare drum in the build up down, or things like that. You might just have to go back and tweak stuff. So now that's done, let's see a side-by-side comparison of each limiter that we used and the LUFS value that they got. And that's the video complete. If you enjoyed this video, why not watch this video here, where I actually show you my step-by-step guides to mixing loud. So you can go even more in depth on the mixing part, and then your master will sound really loud as well. You'll get insane mixes for when you're DJing, or even when you're releasing tunes as well. And you'll be able to compete in this crazy loudness war.